Good morning. My name is Sam. I am an alcoholic and I'm also a son of recovery. Let's start out with the Serenity Prayer. Good and gracious God, grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the courage to change the things I can, and the wisdom to know the difference. Amen. So I'm starting a new book today. Today's book, or this book is called 12 Secular Steps, and it's written by Bill W. I thought this would be an interesting one to read. For those people who might not be so interested in the religious aspect of the 12 steps. So the chapters are a little bit longer, so I may be dividing them up a little bit as we go through. So we're in chapter 1, and this chapter is the separation of religion and recovery. What good is it, my brothers and sisters, if someone claims to have faith but has no deeds? Can such faith save them? But someone will say, you have faith, I have deeds. Show me your faith without deeds, and I will show you my faith by my deeds. This is James chapter 2, verses 14 and 18. The purpose of this chapter is to advance the idea that we separate the faith-based language from traditional 12-step recovery literature. There remains an incredibly valuable and logically structured program. If you work through a simple but not easy plan used to support a fellow addicts and are honest with yourself and others, you are likely to achieve recovery in 12-step groups like AA and Narcotics Anonymous. The first part of this chapter briefly outlines the evangelical Christian origin of 12-step recovery, explaining how faith-based components were incorporated into the literature and practices. The second part of this chapter delves into the why and a little bit of the how one might choose to work a secular adaptation of the 12-step approach. You are not required to hold religious beliefs to recovery in 12-step programs. Since their inception, AA and NA have helped many addicts recover regardless of or even in spite of their religious beliefs or lack thereof. Their only requirement for membership is the desire to get sober or clean, but the religious perspective, which remains a prominent feature in 12-step literature, may initially cause you to think you're in the wrong place. Relax. If you're struggling with addiction, you're in the right place. The origins of traditional faith-based 12-step recovery. 12-step recovery was publicly introduced in 1939 when Bill Wilson, Bill W., published a primary text for a self-help recovery group, AA. This book, titled Alcoholics Anonymous and often called The Big Book, is currently in its 4th edition. The first 164 pages, which include AA's 12 steps, a chapter describing alcoholism, a chapter regarding agnostics, and Wilson's narrative on how it works, have remained essentially intact in every edition. What is updated with each new printing is a selection of personal success stories in the latter part of the book. The creation of AA was profoundly influenced by an evangelical society called the Oxford Group. Wilson, AA co-founder, Dr. Bob Smith, and many of AA's initial 100 members were active Oxford Group members. It seems then that Dr. Frank Buckman, founder of the Oxford Group, deserves a share of the credit for various attributes of 12-step recovery. Indeed, AA took nearly all of its core components from Buckman's movement, including an emphasis on a structured conversion based on steps, practices in Oxford literature, the importance of selfishness and fear as the root of personal problems, the need to inventory and confess one's personal transgressions as part of the conversation process, and the dogmatic creed that the solution to personal problems comes through a complete surrender to and direct conscious experience with a loving God. Submission to the will of God allows him to orchestrate the details of the convert's life. AA even adopted Buckman's doctrine that the convert need not worship a specific God. They should freely use their personal conception of God. Finally, AA also inherited its decentralized organization from the Oxford Group, which had an informal, non-hierarchical structure derived from that of the Quakers. Wilson's initial introduction to the Oxford Group came through a friend who had, for a time, achieved sobriety as a member of this society. He recruited Wilson to do the same. Not long after joining the Oxford group, Wilson had a profound religious transformation while hospitalized for alcohol withdrawal. As an inpatient, he was undergoing treatment with belladonna, a hallucinogen, when suddenly he perceived a bright light, experienced an overwhelming sense of truth and serenity, and accepted God as the solution. He never drank again. In AA, this burning bush transformation is referred to as Wilson's moment of clarity, through which he achieved God consciousness. After his release from the hospital, Wilson became quite active in the evangelical work for the Oxford movement in New York City. He concentrated on fellowship with and testimonial to alcoholics. He soon concluded that this intensive effort to share the message with other alcoholics was critical to maintaining his own sobriety. While struggling with the temptation to drink during a business trip to Akron, Ohio, Wilson felt a pressing need to seek out and help a suffering alcoholic, at least in part to safeguard his own well-being. He made a few phone calls and was introduced to a seemingly hopeless alcoholic, Dr. Bob Smith. Smith soon got sober, their friendship grew, and their efforts went outward to even more alcoholics. AA was thus born. Below are the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. Later, these same steps were adopted with very slight modifications by offshoot addiction recovery groups such as Narcotics Anonymous. In its version of the steps, NA replaces the word alcohol in the first step with the word addiction, and addicts replaces alcoholics in the final step. Other than these two changes, the steps and underlying faith-based philosophies are identical. The 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous. 1. We admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. 2. Came to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. 3. Made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. 4. Made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. 5. Admitted to God, to ourselves, and to another human being the exact nature of our wrongs. 6. Were entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of character. 7. Humbly asked Him to remove our shortcomings. 8. Made a list of all persons we had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. 9. Made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. 10. Continued to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. 11. Sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God as we understood Him, praying only for knowledge of His will for us and the power to carry that out. And 12. Having had a spiritual awakening as a result of these steps, we try to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in all of our affairs. Working these steps occurs in roughly 3 phases. In the initial phase, we admit our problem, step 1, and find the solution, God, steps 2 and 3. In the second phase, steps 4 through 9, we examine our faults and clear away the wreckage from the past. We first analyze and overhaul our inward defects in character, steps 4 through 7, and then we look outward and repair relationships with others, steps 8 and 9. Steps 10, 11, and 12 make up the third phase, through which we maintain our sobriety and devotion to God while also fulfilling the group's mission to help others. Below, you'll find a secular version of the 12 steps that closely resembles the one I use in my early recovery. In the Big Book, Wilson makes it clear to readers that AA's steps form a suggested program of recovery. I will follow this example and present these agnostic steps as a suggested framework as well. 1. I admitted that I am an addict and that my life had become unmanageable. 2. Came to believe that through honesty and effort, combined with the help of others, I could recover from addiction. 3. Made a decision to actively work a 12-step recovery plan to the best of my ability. 4. Completed a searching and fearless moral inventory of myself. 5. Honestly admitted to myself and to another human being the results of my inventory, including my defects of character. 6. Became willing to change defects in my character. 7. Accepted responsibility for my actions. 8. Listed all persons I had harmed and became willing to make amends to them all. 9. Made direct amends to such people wherever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. 10. Continued to take personal inventory, and when I was wrong, promptly admitted it. 11. Sought to improve my conscious awareness of ethical principles and values, and to use them consistently as standards for my decisions and my actions. And 12. Having recovered as a personal, Having recovered as a person as a result of these steps, I acknowledge my commitment to help others and to continue to use these principles in my daily life. These secular 12 steps can be worked in the same 3 general phases of the traditional steps. The significant difference in the secular 12-step framework is that we emphasize a rational plan, teamwork, and the addict's active role and responsibilities in their recovery. The secular rewording de-emphasizes the dependency on the direct actions and responsibility of God or supernatural higher power. The secular point of view is not a rejection of religion or spirituality. It is simply a recognition of the realities of the world in which we live and the observable process by which we recover. Ralph Waldo Emerson once wrote, "Your actions speak so loudly, I cannot hear what you are saying." This wisdom is echoed in the observation that the best predictor of a newcomer's success is not how strongly they profess their acceptance of and dependence upon a God or generic higher power, neither is it how confidently they claim, "I've got this." The best indicator of a newcomer's future success is the observed willingness of that person to show up and take an active part of their recovery. I am going to say that I agree with that statement. The best indicator of a newcomer's future success is the observed willingness of that person to show up and take an active part in their recovery. That is the truth. That is really, I believe that to be a very true statement. To further emphasize this personal accountability and to help addicts visualize individual goals in this process, I have replaced the "we" found in the traditional steps with "I," but I reluctantly make that substitution because the experience and support of fellow addicts is so important to success in 12-step recovery. If I had a "my way," "we" would appear in the official versions of the steps presented to the public, and addicts would use an "I" version to work their personal recovery. Steps 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, and 11 in the traditional AA steps are sometimes referred to as the God steps because of their references to a deity or higher power. When we compare these steps to their secular counterparts, we see a philosophical divide between 12-step traditionalists versus secularists that somewhat resembles the division between creationists and evolutionists. Traditionalists emphasize the miracle, an intense, remarkable event that creates God consciousness and God-derived recovery, whereas secularists emphasize the process of recovery that evolves and develops over time. The secular approach promotes recovery that is primarily learned and earned. So I think I'm going to stop there, and we will continue on at that point. Well, I think this is going to be really fascinating to read. I really love, like I said, that one phrase, because I believe that is true, that the best indicator of a newcomer's success is how they show up and take an active role in their recovery. That is the truth. Regardless of who or what, or if they have a higher power. If they are showing up and they are taking responsibility and doing stuff, I guarantee you they are on a strong road to success. But the other thing I really love that these secular steps really promote still is community and the involvement in community and the healing of your relationships in your community and taking responsibility. I mean, it's hitting all of those like really strong aspects of the original 12 steps. So I really do like this. So I'm anxious to continue reading this, but I'm going to continue tomorrow. So today, you know what? I'm going to read this this is about newfound community, the miracle of meetings. Thank you, God, for one of the great miracles of 12-step recovery, the wisdom, insight, and encouragement I receive in our meetings as I listen to others share their adventures in letting go, surrendering to your will, taking inventory, and practicing recovery principles. I always hear something that comforts or challenges me. Often, the meetings alert me to a problem I'm having and then give me hope and determination to keep pressing on. God, make me ever aware that what I do between meetings is what is really important. That is the truth. So, as always, please leave any comments, questions, or thoughts. And as always, I hope you have a blessed day. Thank you.